You are listening to Veggie Doctor Radio, and this is episode number 273. Welcome to Veggie Doctor Radio. I am your host, Dr. Yami, board-certified pediatrician, certified lifestyle medicine physician, certified health and wellness coach, author, speaker, mother, wife, and human being. I passionately believe in the power of diet, habits, and mindset in sparking and sustaining well-being and joy in our lives. This podcast combines expert interviews and thoughtful monologues to explore plant-based nutrition, lifestyle medicine, parenting, mindset, and other exciting and fun topics. I hope that these episodes inspire you, uplift you, and equip you with the knowledge and tools to live your best life. Are you ready to get started? Let's do it. Hey, veggie lovers. Welcome to another episode of Veggie Doctor Radio. Today I have for you Murray Hidary, who is the creator of MindTravel. And this is a super interesting conversation about music, its ability to connect, and its ability to heal us. I just really enjoyed this conversation. I was very intrigued about this concept, and I'm really glad that I had Murray on the show to talk about his experience and his journey. And there truly are some gems in this episode. No, we don't talk about eating plants. We don't really talk about lifestyle medicine per se, but a lot of the concepts that are discussed in this episode are things that are going to contribute to your well-being, to your health, and potentially to your longevity. So if you're ready to stretch yourself a little bit and think about some different concepts, I really encourage you to listen to this episode. So let's talk about MindTravel. MindTravel is an immersive experience where music and mindfulness meet. Through music, the language of emotion, creator and composer Murray Hidary seeks to open the heart to healing and transformation with his evocative live piano compositions. Recently, the music of MindTravel has also served to bring awareness and a call to action on issues like social justice and climate change. Hidary has brought MindTravel to iconic theaters and spectacular outdoor venues in over 100 cities the world over. From the deserts of the Middle East to the first ever piano concert on the continent of Antarctica, Hidary seeks to bridge gaps in understanding through the universal language of music. Today, he is focused on the human experience and through MindTravel helps people better connect with themselves and one another. So Murray is a composer, he is a musician, and he's a creative, and he talks about today what MindTravel is, how it came about. We talk about why music is so powerful, and he really even gets down to the physics of it, which I found really fascinating. We talk about his process for creating music and how he conducts these concerts, which sounds amazing. We talk about pursuing a purpose-driven life and how he discovered his own purpose. We talk about the concept of radical responsibility, which I think is something that could probably help all of us for sure. And we talk about his no dream left behind philosophy, which I think is so powerful and so applicable to so many people. Overall, like I said, this is a really fascinating, very just practical episode on some of the things that you can do in your own life to improve your life and the way that you react to life, but also maybe start using music and incorporating music in your journey and your healing and your ability to get into that meditative state as well. And so he is going to tell you how you can find out more about his concerts and where to find his music. So veggie lovers, thank you so much for being here and for being with me on this journey and some of these really interesting kind of different episodes I'm bringing to you that I feel called to do and called to share with you. So I hope that you're enjoying them. Thank you so much for all you new listeners that are popping by. I hope that you stay a while and share some of the episodes. And of course, I have so much gratitude for all of my longtime listeners. Thank you so much for being here. And now let's welcome Murray Hidary. Murray Hidary, welcome to Veggie Doctor Radio.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you and to talk about this topic because it's definitely not something that we talk about on my podcast very often, but it's something that I'm very intrigued about. And I'm excited to hear more about your journey and some of your insights and wisdom that you've gained along the way. So let's start with mind travel. What is mind travel and how did it come about?
Well, mind travel is an experience really that I've been doing for most of my life, but it has a name to it now as of probably the last 9, 10 years, and it's an experience that really creates connection and healing through music. And as a composer and pianist, I travel the world and create these experiences where we bring music and mindfulness together in settings of nature and community. And through those ingredients, we really transport, we aim and aspire to transport people and give them a much deeper connection in life overall.
That sounds beautiful. Well, how did you get the idea? How did it start?
Well, I music was probably in some ways my first language, even before English. I was about 5 years old and got my first instrument in my hands, and then the journey began from there.
Murray was generous enough to provide us a sample of some of his music. So if that's something that you're interested in, please stay tuned. At the end of the episode, we will be splicing it in so that you can hear his beautiful music. So I hope that you'll stay and listen to it. And then after that, go visit his website where you can find more information on how to attend one of his concerts or virtually participate in his concerts from the comfort of your own living room.
And for me, music was always a very natural way to express myself. And then as I grew, I realized how powerful music was for self-expression and to really connect with our emotional state and beyond that. And so the journey just keeps deepening and unfolding. And, music is an experience that I think we can all relate to universally. And when I take this experience around the world, I'm able to connect with people from very different backgrounds, but with the commonality of the human experience.
Yeah, because music is one of those common languages that we speak. No matter what culture, where you're from, there's some sort of music, there's some sort of rhythm. It's something that we feel inside our bodies, pretty much inside our souls. It's like the essence of being is music. I'm curious about your music journey because my older son, who's 18, is very similar. Like he started making music when he was just like a toddler. He was able to get one of those little toy pianos that only has 4 keys and was able to replicate some songs that he was hearing in some of the little programs and shows that he was hearing. And I know that he was kind of born with music inside of him. But I'm wondering if there was ever a point that you noticed that you had transitioned from that childlike wonder of creating music, of hearing music, making music to almost being overly conscious or self-conscious about music, maybe getting perfectionistic. I'm just really curious about that because I'm not an artist in that way. So I'm wondering if you've ever felt that in your life, or have you always felt like it's just been easy and free and just coming straight from your soul?
Yeah, I think that's actually a great question. I mean, I think for me, the journey has been kind of like, kind of going to the top of a hill, but then dipping down into a valley and then rising back up in a sense. Because, when you're young, you play with, like you said, the kind of freedom of a child and you're exploring. But then at some point, right, there's the comparative mind, right? And we become aware of others and wait, am I as good as the other student in the class? And you start to generate these thoughts of where do I rank in terms of others, people people you encounter, and then of course there's the broader world out there, and it's easy to get caught up in that kind of spiral of thoughts, and that's when it's most important to kind of reconnect to the reason, like why you're doing it in the first place, and until I reconnected with that, I think there was a period of time I was kind of lost in that, like, should I even pursue this? Am I good enough for this? Is it, is this worth pursuing? And so there was definitely a point in time of confusion. But then when I reconnected with the reason why I love music so much, right? Because there's nothing for me that expresses and allows me to connect, not just with myself, but with the whole universe, like music. And so when I reconnected with that and I felt the power of it again, in a sense, I was kind of reframed and reborn through the music. And then I was able to do it again for its own sake and for my own exploration. And that childlike relationship with it is something I really am conscious of maintaining, like to this day, way into my adult years, right? And so every time I sit at the piano, it is about the discovery that's possible and hearing that note as if it's the first time I've ever played it.
That's beautiful, and that's so powerful. And I can resonate with that on different levels, not as an artist or as a music creator, but I feel like reconnecting to our why. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later as far as purpose. I think that that's really important when we're pursuing different goals, or, even just playtime and having fun, reconnecting with that why is really important. So tell me why you think music is so powerful.
Well, I've been the beneficiary of the power of music. And, whether it was as a child who was, a pretty shy kid, and I was able to turn to music as a way to express myself and connect with others most easily. That's where it started. But then as I grew, I got really into Eastern philosophy and meditation as a teenager in my 20s. And music was actually the way that I connected with those ideas, right? With this idea that, for instance, all things are connected. We've all heard that. We've all said that. We've all, kind of played with that idea. But, what does it really mean? How do we actually feel that, right? What's the physical experience of that? What's the embodied experience of that? And music can really get us right up to the edge of that and allow us to see and feel and experience the porousness of the boundaries of all things, right? Where they start to blend one into the other. And if we start to perceive the whole universe truly as what it is, which is this infinite spectrum of vibration, right? Every little particle, every subatomic particle, atom, molecule is vibrating and dancing throughout the universe. So from the smallest to the largest, it's all vibration. And that is the physics of things. Those vibrations and frequencies we can experience through our senses. Those frequencies and vibrations we experience through measurement and instruments and tools that we make as human beings. And those that, my gosh, we have yet to discover. And so it's just a universe of vibration that is just truly at the fingertips of all of our senses. And music being a language purely of vibration, right? What do we do with a violin? We move the string so that it vibrates and produces this tone, which then moves and vibrates the air, right? Which we then perceive as sound, and music, which then has an emotional impact on us. I mean, the fact that music even has the emotional impact on us that it does is in and itself a miracle, right? It's simply the transference of energy, right, through mechanical waves, moving air molecules that hit our ears and get, translated into what we perceive as music. And then it has an emotional impact on us nonetheless. So just the physics of music in and of itself is miraculous. That it even has the impact that it has. Out in the world, just in the space around us, music, the sound does not actually exist as we perceive it in our minds. It's just movement of molecules. That's it. And then it's only our translation of that movement and the fine distinctions of movement, right? From one, frequency to the next. I mean, minute differences that allow us to hear pitches and melodies and harmonies and complexity where we're blending them together, right? Music is not linear. We don't just hear one thing at a time. Music is multidimensional, right? We're hearing it both horizontally and vertically. So the power of music as a language, as a means of communication, right, is a highly sophisticated one, right? Because with spoken language, right, we know the power of spoken language, right? We know great orators, we know great poetry, we know great novels, but it is linear, right? We have to put one word in front of another in order to make sense, one sentence in front of another, one paragraph, one idea. If many people start talking at the same time, we call that cacophony, confusion, noise. We can't understand it. But with music, it's actually the opposite, right? We have one note in front of the other. Yes, okay, that's a melody, and that could be beautiful, and that is linear. But now we put a second melody with that, a third, a fourth, a fifth, and now we have polyphony, right? Why Bach was such a genius. And we have counterpoint, and we have harmony, and it's the interplay vertically, not just horizontally. So now we have a multi-dimensional matrix, right, of sounds. And it's not just that 1 + 1, is 2. No, it's suddenly one melody plus another melody gives you something totally different, right? Greater than the sum of their parts somehow. And so to me, that is exponential power. And that's what music embodies.
Wow. I think I realize you have the most important job in the world now because you're right. It really is a miracle, especially when you explain it that way. And I definitely take it for granted because I'm not a musician myself, but my life, I have to be surrounded by music. So even to do things like exercise, I can't even work out without music. Like it motivates me. It gives me that, like, just this surge of energy. But one of the values that we have here at the practice is to play music. We like to have music in the waiting room, like relaxing music, so that when parents and their kids come in, they're feeling calm, because kids are anxious when they come to the doctor. But we also like to have upbeat music because we like to have a fun atmosphere, and we find that it makes a huge difference. I've always wondered, why don't we play more music in places like this, in doctors' offices and places where people are already feeling anxious and nervous about things. Mm-hmm. So that's always been one of my values, and I appreciate it so much that you're right, that when people are able to create this for us, it does feel like such a blessing in our lives to have that. So thank you so much for experiencing that. Besides your own story, as you've been doing some of this work and you created MindTravel, what have you witnessed thus far about the power of music to heal and transform? Do you have any stories that you can share with us?
I mean, there's so many. I'm fortunate to be able to get in front of so many thousands and thousands of people, with the music that I share in the MindTravel experiences, whether it's at beaches or parks or theaters. And inevitably afterwards, whether it's in person or people follow up with a DM, an Instagram, or an email, I'll hear their anecdotes about their experience with the music, and especially when it comes to healing, whether it's an intense grief that they're either currently going through or something from the past that has not fully been processed, the music seems to bring it up in the present, so it's right there with them. And then the music is able to kind of meet them where they are, right, with whatever pain they're dealing with, right? And it could be everything from, the grief of someone who died. It could be just something from the day, something stressful from the day that they're dealing with. But it becomes present, and music also triggers a lot of memory that might be forgotten, suppressed, and it presents it. It brings it right up. and then they're able to deal with whatever comes up. And the music kind of holds that space. And the key thing is allowing them to feel whatever pain is there, right? Just kind of feel it out. And then on the other side of that, suddenly they have this release, this beautiful opening that takes place. So, I mean, I've had so many people that are dealing with grief. They're dealing with pain of different kinds, both emotional and physical. And by going through the music, and it's not just any music, right? I mean, the music that takes place and that I create with MindTravel, first of all, it's a long form. It's not just short pieces, one after the other. It could be about an hour experience without any interruption. And, the mind is so powerful that it's, and it's always trying to do its thing, which is to protect us, right? So it's actually on our side. But sometimes the brain is doing things that actually get in our way when it thinks it's helping us, like trying to push away painful memories and thoughts and emotions because it wants us to be able to function in the present. But while that could be helpful, right, if we're out, hunting in the plains of Africa and we don't want to be distracted from the hunt, yes, it's good not to be in reverie and and dealing with an emotional issue at that point. But we live in a different day and age now, and it's very appropriate to have space and time to process emotions so that we can move forward and not be stuck with them. And so that's what's taking place. And the longer form music allows the mind time to open up, to disarm, to put the walls down, right? And for what's needed to come up, the time to process it, integrate it, and kind of feel it through, right? Without being interrupted, without being pulled out of the experience, right? By the song ending and starting and that kind of thing. So it's a very deliberate and purposeful format of a MindTravel experience.
Yeah, I love it. I've been listening to your music during my meditations, your binaural tones music, and it is very beautiful. And I agree. It's like it facilitates that ability to get into that space where you can let go.
That's
because
right.
I think sometimes that human part of us is like so stuck in the present and so stuck in the material that we need something to kind of let us like, okay, you can let go. Just, focus on this and let things process. So that's really, really beautiful. So speaking of process, what is the process that you use as a creator to create and compose music?
So, my process, there's work that I do compose, meaning write it all out. But that's not the piano music that I play in my concerts. When I get up on stage and I play at MindTravel concert, it's actually all extemporaneous. It's all a real-time composition. It's all improvised in the MindTravel language that I've created as a composer. And so from the first note to the last note, I'm not really sure where it's going to go. And that is my own practice, in that way. And so that's what makes it exciting for me. And it's my practice in the sense that it keeps me fully in the present moment with the music. It's kind of like, surfing on that wave and just being with it the whole time as the music moves and it wants to go this way or that way. And it's my practice to stay with it and to kind of partner with the sound and see kind of which way it wants to wind down the river. From there, I actually record all of those, and I then go back and listen to it, and I'll take the parts that were most powerful, and then I'll actually turn those into larger orchestral compositions, and use that as the raw material, right, for some of the bigger compositions that I write. So that this way, the larger compositions have that organic nature to them because they were created from a very spontaneous moment. So that's the process that I go through, and it works really, really well. And it's always exciting for me because I'm never playing the same thing twice.
That's so, so cool. I love that you're able to use your concerts as inspiration for then composing. But before you start one of these live concerts, are you ever afraid that it's not going to work out? Like, oh, okay, this is going to be the time that I mess up or that I don't know what to do next?
You know, when I first started Mind Travel, I truly was plagued by exactly that. And not just right before I went on stage, but for weeks before a big event, big concert, I'd feel like a pressure in my like solar plexus, like tension, right?
Yeah.
And it was like an anxiety building up. Now, of course, once the day came and I went out on stage, as a professional, I did my thing and it all worked out. But I just didn't enjoy the stress and anxiety leading up to it. All the more so because what I was creating was supposed to alleviate that. And I said, well, I got to really address that. What's going on under the hood there? Is it just a normal, kind of every performer has that, or is there something deeper? And I actually worked with a wonderful therapist, kind of like a combination of hypnosis and neuro-linguistic programming, very talented. And we kind of went in the session to really uncover what was under the hood. And it turns out it was as simple as my subconscious not wanting me to be in a dangerous position, right? Where I might be embarrassed, make a mistake or anything like that. But I then dialogued with that subconscious part of me. And it was kind of like talking to a 5-year-old in a sense, right? There's these subconscious parts of us that are programmed as 5-year-olds and they never change, but they're in us, somehow. And so I dialogued with this kind of 5-year-old part of me that just wanted me to stay home and play, right? And not go out to a dangerous place. And I said, well, okay, assuming that I don't make a mistake and everything's going to be okay and I won't be embarrassed, what would you want from me? What do you want for us in life? And then, of course, this part of me was like, no, I want you to shine and I want you to share and I want you to be fully expressed and all that. And by this reframing, it was like talking that part of me off the ledge and being like, it's all going to be fine. And also realizing, once you go through, right, the most challenging and painful, experiences in life, right? Like all of us will go through something really challenging that just puts us in the direct confrontation with something existential. And then we start realizing, what really matters and how insignificant the smaller things, really are. And so what if I make a mistake? That's what I asked myself. Like, who cares? Right? In a way, it could be charming. And then it's like, what do I do with that mistake? And can I shift that into something else? And so all of that anxiety, actually, I was able to transmute that into what actually is the energy underlying anxiety, which is actually excitement. Excitement and anxiety are cut from the same cloth. And suddenly, I stopped feeling that pressure in my solar plexus, and I was able to get up on stage, and the weeks leading to it, I was actually filled with excitement. And of course, as long as I prepare, and as long as I'm taking care of myself, then the performance should go great. And it turns out that they all do. And even if I make a little mistake here or there, it's not a problem.
Well, the majority of us wouldn't be able to tell anyway, so
Right, exactly.
who are not musicians. Do you ever feel like do you get like in a meditative state, or do you feel like you're channeling something whenever you're playing these concerts?
It's a question that, especially at the concerts in the Q&A afterwards, everyone asks, like, what are you thinking when you sit down and when you're playing? And for me, the main thing I try to do when I sit down is, like, how do I get out of my own way as quickly as possible, right? All the swirling thoughts, right? The whole monkey mind that we all have and is kind of constantly chattering away. especially right before a concert, like, okay, is everybody here? Is everyone comfortable? Is the lighting good? Is the temperature good? It's like all the logistical things for a concert, that's all chattering away. And then when I sit down, it's like, how can I clear all that, put it aside to just be with the music? And for that reason, I actually start each concert the same way. So first of all, right before I come on stage, I do some very simple breathing and physical movements to kind of get myself in it. It's as sophisticated as our brains and bodies are, they're easily hacked, right? Like we can easily manipulate our own system. It's like that classic example of if you stand in front of the mirror and you make a big gesture, right? A big open, macho kind of gesture, right? Like a big gorilla, it turns out it actually does make you feel more confident. And studies have shown that. It's ridiculous, but it's true. And so our systems are hackable, are manipulatable. So why not use that to our advantage? And I do that kind of thing, before I get out on stage, and it allows me to kind of push some of the nonsense aside and to just have the energy and the focus. And then when I sit on that bench, I don't rush into it. I take my time. I sit there sometimes for 20 seconds, 30 seconds before I do anything, and just let the room settle and let the energy settle. And then when I feel the quality of the silence that's just right? What you start to learn as a musician and as a performer is like, not all silence is the same. It's like there's different qualities of silence, and you can tell, you can feel it. And when I feel that the silence is ripe and ready, and it's a silence of anticipation, excitement, it's a silence of possibility, right? That's what's sitting there. Then I'll start the first note. And I always start with one resounding note that I hit and I let ring. And it's kind of like the bell at the beginning of a meditation, perhaps. It's kind of like a church bell, right? That you'll hear on a Sunday. And that the purpose of it, I think the intention of it, is to call our attention to the present moment. Right? I think that's what both of those examples do, right? At the beginning of a meditation, or the church bell is like, it's now, it's right now, and let's come together right now. And then from there, the music starts to move, right? But now I've cleared the space and I'm with it. And now it's just my job to stay on the train and hopefully keep everybody on the train with me.
Wow.
So that's how I approach it. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really incredible. I can't wait to go to one of your concerts. I even before you said it, I could sense that what you were thinking, like that moment where that's pregnant with anticipation, where you can feel everybody's energy, like, okay, we're ready,
yeah.
We're paying attention, we're listening, what's coming.
Totally.
I could feel that inside my soul, what that feels like. That's amazing. But I love what you said. How do I get out of my way as quickly as possible? And that applies to so much in life, right?
All of
because
it.
we have this chatter all the time. You can't do this. You're not good enough. This is wrong. It's not going to work out. Like, get that out and just do the thing.
Exactly.
Just go do the thing that you want to do, because you want to do this. You were born to do this, right? And so a lot of us have this. We're born to do these things. We want to do it, but we have all of this mental chatter that's holding us back and not allowing us to pursue that. So that brings me to my next question is, why should we pursue a purpose-driven life? And how did you discover your own purpose? Because to me, it really seems like you are living a purpose-driven life.
Absolutely. And, it's like the sayings, right? If you do what you love, right, you never work a day in your life. Now, I work really hard, but it doesn't feel that way, And it truly doesn't. Like I can't wait for, the proverbial Monday morning, right? Turns out I work more on weekends because I do concerts. But anyway, but the like I just can't wait for, I go to sleep and I'm excited to sleep and rest and I love my sleep. And then when I open my eyes, like I'm just so grateful that like I'm alive and I can't wait to see what unfolds in this day, because there's so much that is I can't predict. Right, the phone call I get, the email that comes in, for requesting a concert here or there, or different opportunities that arise, simply because of the nature, of what I do, and that's just filled with so much excitement. But ultimately, like we said earlier, right, it just boils down to that the notion of why, like why do we do something in the first place, and I think that. For most people, they're really not tethered to that. Doesn't mean that there isn't a why. There always is a why, but some people are just not actually conscious of it. It does take quite a bit of work to figure out why we do the things we do. And I say there's always a why because there's always a wound, okay? And what I mean by that is that we all were children. We all grew up. We all were around caretakers, parents, grandparents, teachers, whoever it was. And people are human. And in the interactions with other human beings, there's always going to be miscommunication. There's always going to be misunderstanding. And that's in the best of circumstances. I'm not even talking about the unfortunate circumstances of abuse and trauma and things like that, which are horrific and horrible, and happen, right? So the spectrum, right, from the worst childhood to the best possible childhood, right, is still going to be filled with woundings, simply because a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 12-year-old with a limited development of their brain and emotional capacity will interpret the world in the way they interpret it. And it's not as an adult interprets it, it's as a 4-year-old interprets it. So it will always be flawed. And what a child tends to do is to personalize it, because they are the center of the universe. And understandably so. And so if anything happens around them that has some combination, right, of pain and confusion as to why that pain exists. So, like, for instance, if you fall down on your bicycle learning to ride, it's painful, but there's not a lot of confusion around it because you clearly understand the cause and effect, right? But if your parents divorce, as an example, and you're feeling that pain, and you really have no idea why, right? You're not privy to all the behind the scenes of that. So you personalize it and you blame yourself, right? That's a very common example. And now you're going to carry forward, right, that wounding, and it has to be compensated in some way. It will have its effect. And most likely, the things that become valuable to you, right, will be tied to that. So that's why I talk about this, the why and the wound, right, is so tied together, because what we make important for us is really about this notion of trying to make ourselves whole and heal ourselves from the wounding that we either consciously or subconsciously, are aware of. And that's a big part of this journey of life. But the more work we do to connect with kind of why do I value connection, right? For instance, that's one of my personal core values. And that's because as a kid, I really didn't feel connected. I felt disconnected. I felt unrelatable. I really felt isolated. Again, that was my emotional experience. It was actually not my physical experience. My physical reality was, anyone looked in from the outside, it was a wonderful childhood. But it doesn't matter. That my personal experience of it was one of of tremendous disconnection. And so connection became something I sought out, whether it was through music or through Eastern ideas, which were wonderful, through books, through all kinds of modalities. And now it's no coincidence that at the core of mind travel, right, is about connecting people through music.
Wow.
Right? And that's a big part of my why. And I could trace it all the way back to, a 5-year-old. Me. And so we all have that. And they don't have to be super fancy, like, super sophisticated, right? We all are human and we all have very common experience, even if our details are different, right? And that's what's so fascinating. Like, none of us will have the same details, right? The same specifics. But we have the same kind of common emotional arcs in our journey. And that's why music becomes so powerful and relatable, because it is the language of emotion, right? We try to express emotions with words, but the more intense the emotion, the more words fail and fall short. And we say that, don't we? Like, when we don't have the words for something, we turn to music. And music kind of picks up the baton, right, from where our language, our wording leaves off. Because, again, of its multidimensionality. And emotions are multidimensional. Let's not forget that. Yeah. No one is ever experiencing, right? You know this. No one is ever experiencing one emotion at a time. We might call it that, but that's only because we're trying to simplify it to process it or explain it. But no one's only experiencing anger. There's a whole iceberg beneath anger, right, that exists. Lots of emotions in there that would need to be parsed out. But we kind of label our emotions one at a time, but they're not linear and they're not experienced uniquely one at a time. They're complex. They're a ball that needs to be untangled, especially when they become really intense, like going through intense grief that will have anger in it, will have resentment in it. It could have guilt in it. It could have regret in there. All kinds of stuff could be loaded in there, So that's where it becomes so powerful to bring awareness to these deeper layers of our experience. Right? This is not the surface. We're not talking here about the superficial layer of human experience. Even if emotions seem obvious on the surface, there's a lot underneath there. And music can help us unpack that and feel that and experience it and understand ourselves better. And that's how we relate to others better. And suddenly you feel a deeper connection. It's not a coincidence, right? And there's a real reason. There's a mechanics to this. Of why it works this way.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. I never really thought of exactly how you explained it, about having that pain and confusion being kind of the catalyst of our purpose in life and the things that we seek out and desire in life. But it makes a lot of sense. And in the health space, I work with a lot of other people that are in the health space, and you do hear that this was triggered by this one thing that happened to me when I was young, like this person died of this disease and I didn't know why they got that, and then I started doing all this research and I found this and I want to help other people with that,
Yeah.
So it's you're right, it really does. It's kind of like this thing that happens that causes this big strong emotion that leaves you searching for answers, and then you want to spread that to other people. But yeah, I love how you said music is the language of emotion, and that word multi-dimensionality, it's true, and it's just so beautiful. Lately, and I've talked about this a few times, I don't know, for some people this might be weird, but I've gotten really into watching testimonials about near-death experiences. I don't know if you've ever read or listened to any of these, but they have a lot of commonalities. And one of the themes that I hear over and over again is when people end up in this space where they're having this experience, a lot of people hear music. but it's indescribable. Same thing for colors. They're indescribable. Like they'll say, there's no way for me to be able to explain to you what it sounded like or what it looked like, because there's no human language that exists to explain it. And so I think that we can get pretty close, and this beautiful music that we can create, we're getting close to some of those feelings, but it probably doesn't even scratch the surface of what it is in the true reality, right? So, all right, next question for you. What is radical responsibility? This is a very interesting concept.
Oh, absolutely. It's something that probably one of the most important moments for me is when it happened. It happened in my 20s. When in my 20s, in order to kind of figure out how to pay the bills and all that, I was like, how am I going to make money with classical music? It was not clear what I'm doing now. It was not clear then as a 20 something, and I along with my older brother, we got into the technology world, and we were building a technology company, and we were figuring it out as we went, and it was just a wild west time, right, for technology, as it seems to always be, as it is now again, and I, things would always happen that would be real problems, and oftentimes it was easy to be like, I can't believe that person did this and this person did that, and why didn't they do their job there? Why did they do their job there? It's like one thing after another, and it became so easy, right, in a business context to constantly blame other people, right, for things not working, and it almost felt obvious in that way, and then I realized, I said, how is blaming others really gonna get me where I need to go, for this company, right? Now, yes, of course, we have to hold people accountable. But at the end of the day, right, I felt it was my responsibility, right? I had to take responsibility for moving things forward and getting to where we wanted to go. And then it started working, right? It started to really, the results really shifted. And so then I applied that to my personal life, right? To my emotional life. And there again, right? How easy is it? How tempting is it to point the finger, right, at others and say, I can't believe that person said that. I can't believe that person did this to me. I can't believe this. I can't believe that. And we're constantly offended, and we're constantly complaining, and we're constantly right and righteous and all of it. And where does it actually get us? Right? And we have so much evidence for it, right? No, but look, it's true. Look what they did. Look what they said. And ultimately, the same thing, right? Like the company, like in the business world, like where's that actually going to get you? And so I applied the same ideas there. And suddenly I was able to move forward in a very empowered way and saying, look, this is my life we're talking about. Right? I want to feel happy and fulfilled and all those things. So if I let all those things hold me back, right, because it seems to be the case that was, and now suddenly I'm handing my power over to other people, right? If somebody says something or does something, and now I'm in a bad mood, I'm in a state that doesn't feel good, right? I've actually let their action, whether they said something or did something, affect me in a way that is not how I actually want to be. And so I've now handed over all my power to this person. And suddenly I'm not feeling good. And now I have to, sit with this uncomfortable, painful feeling. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. And so what this notion of radical responsibility states, and the reason why it has the word radical in front of it, it doesn't have to, but it's just to drive the point home, right? That we may not be responsible, right, for the actions of others, but we are wholly responsible for our reactions to it, and we are wholly responsible for our lives, right? That our life is not the responsibility of any other human being. Now, just that sentence alone is actually not the reality for many people, right? Many people don't even have that belief. They might say, no, it's my family's responsibility to make sure that I'm happy. It's my friends' responsibility. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying what works, right? Ultimately, I've taken the point of view that it's my responsibility for the quality of my life. Now, yes, certainly other people can do things that support that, but it is not required. I'm not relying solely on it. It's just an enhancement to it. And ultimately, it's my job to move my life forward in the direction that I want to.
Yeah.
So I could still hold people accountable, right? Just like in the business context. Okay, we can talk about the accountability of that, but ultimately, it's my job to manage my own state. And so then we get into a lot of kind of the detail of how that actually plays out. But something as simple as, going from a reaction to someone's behavior, which is conditioned, to creating space and now responding from a place of responsibility, right? Mm-hmm. And that's also where I use music, right? I use music to kind of create some space, right? Maybe I don't have that difficult conversation with the person right away in direct reaction and response, but I let a little time, whether it's an hour or a day or a week, whatever's appropriate in that context, and I just allow it to settle, and I allow myself to ground and to think through it, to feel through it. I use music in that space, and now I can approach the person, have that difficult conversation, right? Yes, it's a challenging conversation, but it's from a very different, empowered place, right? And I'm moving my life forward, and I'm taking responsibility for my life in that sense, right? And it's amazing where you can apply it. I mean, throughout your day, it's from the biggest things to to getting your coffee at Starbucks, and there's always something that's going to trigger you somewhere, right? And traffic, and and all of it, and it's all this relation with how do I take responsibility, right, for this? And again, it doesn't mean, right, we're not talking here about fault so much, right? Yes, somebody could have done something that really sucks, absolutely. But now what you do with that is all yours. It's all you. And that's really what it comes down to. And the most effective people and the people with the most fulfilling lives and the most achievement, the most motivation, whatever metric you want to use, all have this sense of personal responsibility, right? Over the moment, over their lives, over all of it. Yeah. Right. And it roots down, like underneath this notion of taking this personal responsibility is, right, becoming more aware, right, of all of it, accepting the way things are, and then taking action from that place. Mm-hmm. Right. And those are kind of the 3 A's, so to speak, like this, becoming more aware, not just being reactive to something, but like taking a step back, creating some awareness around it. Right. Then accepting however you're feeling. Like it could be really triggering you, and just sitting with that and not trying to fight it. Accepting that. Accepting the circumstance as it is. Right. Oftentimes the happening, the circumstance, the situation is really not going to be what you want. And so if we resist it, if we fight it, right, we're giving it a lot of power. But if we accept it the way it is, doesn't mean we like it. It doesn't mean we want it that way. But you first have to accept the way it is, and then we can take the appropriate action. That's the 3rd A. Right? And then we can move things forward from that empowered place, from a place of it's my responsibility to move this in the direction that I want to move it in. Then you can mobilize other people, then you can, harness resources, you can do lots of things, but it's from a much clearer place. So going through that process of awareness, acceptance, and action, it truly works miracles.
I love that. Thank you for sharing with us something so practical that we can apply, because I feel like these concepts can be so simple,
Hmm.
but it's a challenge to
Yeah.
implement them and to practice them. And I really wish it's something that was taught in school,
Yeah.
how to manage our thoughts and feelings, how to manage our reactions. And it is one of those things that's cumulative in both directions, right? If you go through life playing the victim mentality, you're negative all the time, it's cumulative. But once you start practicing managing your thoughts and feelings, taking this radical responsibility, it's a cumulative in a positive way,
Yeah.
but it also spreads to others too.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things I talk about is whenever we are good about our own self-care, managing our thoughts and feelings, taking care of ourselves, it actually helps us be more productive. It
Bingo.
helps us give more. If that's something that we're interested in, we can serve even more in a better way when we're able to take care of those things, even though it can be hard.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. And it's got to be simple, right? Because if it's too hard to do, if we have to suddenly, stop and figure out a differential calculus equation and then take action, we'll never do it, right? So it has to be something simple that anyone, everyone, at any time, at any moment can do. And actually, it gets even easier because, like any muscle, right, we strengthen it. So, for instance, this reaction versus responding muscle is something that actually gets easier and easier to do because you catch yourself, right? You catch yourself responding, right? Because emotion is immediate. It's the body's response, right? It's chemical, it's hormonal. It's like you can't help, but the emotion just happens. But then we can actually, now through awareness, we can say, oh, wow, look at my heart rate is elevated. Look at my hair is standing up. I feel a bit flushed. I feel kind of the surge of adrenaline, right? There's something chemically happening in my biology, right? And that can then show you, okay, there's something that's triggering you here, right? You can feel that, and you can bring your awareness to that. And then that could be the sign of, okay, now is a time to step back, not lean forward, but take a step back, process it, accept it, see what's going on, and now take action from a very different place, right? A place of responsibility, not of reaction, right? So simple, anyone can do it. It's just building that muscle of it.
Yeah. And one thing that I found has been really helpful for me is the times that we mess up, because we will.
Yeah.
Because, there's going to be times when you don't take that space and you just react and you say something that might have not been the best thing or that you wanted to say, is not sitting in that shame of it. Instead, just evaluating, okay, why did that happen? What can I do next time? And believing that you can get better at it. Because
right.
if you believe, oh, well, this is just the way I am, this is how I'm always going to be, then you're just going to sit in that shame and guilt, and you're not going to be able to change. It's more like, oh man, I screwed up. Okay, next time I'm going to do this, and I'm going to practice doing it this way. So.
And the magic of messing up, so to speak, is there's actually a real opportunity there. And part of this whole notion of radical responsibility is also cleaning stuff up, right, quickly and with responsibility, and saying, hey, I know I said that, I know I did that, I'm truly sorry, I know this is probably how it made you feel, but no, this is what's going on for me, and how can I fix it, how can I repair it, right, and how can I do it differently. That actually, being able to clean it up in that way, here's the thing, it turns out that it actually makes the relationship with that person deeper and stronger than before you messed up. That's a crazy thought, isn't it? Like, you just messed up, you hurt the person, and now by properly cleaning it up, whether it's apologizing, whatever, however that looks like, you actually will have a deeper relationship with them now. That's what's so beautiful.
Yes.
Because that's the human side of it. Because we all are going to mess up. It's part of being human. It's a question of what's the quality of the cleanup. Mm-hmm. Right? Do we blame someone else? Do we just push it away? Or do we lean into it and communicate about it and then clean it up, heal it, and now we have a stronger bond, right? It's like muscle that tears, and then when it heals, it's stronger, right? Same kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. That's such a beautiful concept and something I had to learn during parenting as well, because you'll definitely have those days where your tolerance is low and you yell at your kids. And one thing that I've learned is, you know, you take a step back, you talk to your kids and be like, dude, I'm sorry. Mommy lost it today. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize.
Yeah.
And, but then also your kids realize that they also don't have to be some sort of perfect human being. Like there's no such thing as a perfect human being. And when they have those flubs in life, they also have the opportunity to do that cleanup. So thanks for reminding us about that. Really briefly, I don't want to leave out this no dream left behind philosophy. Can you briefly tell us what that means?
I've always had so many interests, across many different areas. And, I also had this conditioning from my perception of society, right? Which is, focus on one thing, right? And, become an expert in that one thing. And it just never sat right with me, and I was like, but I have this curiosity and this passion for so many different things. And I started to realize like two really important things. The first is that to feel this fulfillment, to feel the benefits of creativity, right? Real innovation and creativity comes from actually connecting dots between disparate disciplines. Right? That's where the new thing happens. And so having multiple interests can have tremendous benefit. So that's one thing that really helped me in leading a life where I was able to maintain kind of many interests. And then the other thing was understanding that, I can have this rich, full life, right? Something I call no dream left behind, right? This idea that kind of like, like in the army, like no man left behind kind of thing, right? And to me, I really like visualized that, right? I was like we all have dreams. And then at some point in life, we look back and it's like you see this field of like, fallen dreams that we just never realized or fulfilled or tried in any way. And that was like, just so disheartening to me to have that. So, we want to move things from dream state to reality state. Even if they don't work out, at least we gave it a shot. And so I felt like that was an important kind of ethos to have across the board. And the real key there is permission. To give ourselves permission to actually do the things that, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be focusing on your parenting. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. You should focus on your business, right? And by the way, it's not always others that are telling us that. Most often we tell ourselves that. Like, no, I can't start that business because I should spend more time with the kids. And so there's, especially in today's day and age, with technology and, the remote working and all these things that are actually we can use to our benefit, right? We can pursue the things that in decades past would have been much more challenging. And it's not always about doing it at the same time as everything else, but as, short as life is, it's also pretty long. And we can pace things the right way. We can put balls in the air that will crest and fall in some period of time when we're able to catch it. And it doesn't mean it's tomorrow, but it means we can get a process going, right? And touch it every day or every week. And suddenly, with the accumulation effect, right, we can actually make a tremendous amount of progress that we can reap 5 years, 10 years down the road. And it seems hard to grasp that when you're first starting, but that is how things work, right? That is how things grow. And so, anyone who has a kid knows that they can't even believe how quickly suddenly where did the time go? And that's just how life is in all areas, right? It's the small amounts of quality time, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, in accumulation, in aggregation, that make all the difference. Whether it's learning a language, learning an instrument, right? Which everyone wants to do. Have you ever met someone who's like, I would never want to learn another language. I will never want to learn another instrument. No, everyone has this. Like we have these commonalities. Maybe for one person it's the piano, another person it's the guitar, another person it's the bassoon. Who cares? But we all have the things we're pulled towards. Some people want to learn Chinese, some people want to learn Spanish, and some people want to learn French because they want to go to Paris and order in a French restaurant and feel like a local. Great. Pursue the dream. But it doesn't have to be you immerse yourself in, live in Paris for 6 months. Not everyone can do that. No, you can take an online class that you can do for 10 minutes a day on your app, right? So, but it's about having the big picture in mind so that you do and take those steps each day and having that discipline and that vision for your own life. And that's leading a no dream left behind life.
I love that because I'm definitely a multi-passionate person as well. And I have so many things I want to do. But I do see people stopping themselves because they think it's too late. I'm too old. I'm
Right.
too whatever. And it's never too late.
Never.
There's some people that start pursuing their dreams when they're 80. So it's never too late.
That's
and
right.
what you're saying is just get started, put the ball in the air. It doesn't have to be like perfect. It doesn't have to be like you get it done right away, but starting to pursue some of those dreams so you don't look behind you and you see all your dreams strewn about, never addressed. Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, totally. Let's avoid that.
Murray, what do you wish more people knew?
Oh my. I think I wish more people knew that, and it's a thing that when I realized it changed me. So I wish more people knew that they didn't have to believe all their thoughts. Mm. And I think that's the number one thing that gets in people's way is their own thoughts. And the moment we realize that, hey, that voice in my head is actually not me. It's just a thought. Like anything else, it's just something that arises and falls away. And it's when we cling to it and attach to it that it can become a real problem. And we don't just let it do what it actually just wants to do, which is just the energy comes up and falls away.
Yes.
But we grasp it and we won't let it go, right? Because it triggers us emotionally in some way, or it triggers a fear or whatever. So I wish more people knew that they didn't have to believe all their thoughts.
Yes. So wise. So wise. I love that one. Do you have a morning routine?
I have modified my morning routine over time. I've tried lots of different things. I'm the kind of person that no matter how good it is, I can never do the same thing all the time because I just need variety and I need to have creative expression. But there are, of course, certain things that are go-to, and I'll kind of play with them, throughout the week. The most important one, though, I will say, is space, empty space in the morning. And that is something I'm religious about. And I really don't schedule things right away in the morning in terms of meetings and that kind of thing. But I create space in the morning where there's nothing scheduled and I'm just able to be with my own kind of thoughts. And that's where so many of my creative ideas come from, in that deliberate space. And then, of course, there's other things, whether it's, breathing. I love doing breathing when I wake up first thing, like deep breathing. It's really important. But that's the most important thing, is just creating some empty space. In terms of things like exercise, and I'm more of a later in the day exercise person. So I do that usually at the end of the day. For me, that works better, but everyone's different. I like to sit with my coffee in the morning, or my tea, depending on what I'm feeling, and just and to me that's not a social thing. It's like that is a personal time for me. It's a personal ritual. It's a personal time. And hopefully I'm near nature and I can do that outside. But if not, then it's just about, having that space.
It sounds luxurious because right now I'm at a time in my life where my life is so overscheduled
Yeah.
that having empty space, like I'm salivating at that idea. So someday I will be able to go back to having a little bit more empty space in
You
my
have to
life.
fight for it. You do. You have
Yeah.
to fight for it. It's not. I know it's not easy because the calendar, our schedule. It's like an empty suitcase on a vacation, right? Like you'll fill it up. Like no matter how you could be going away for 2 days, and no matter how big the suitcase is, you'll fill it up. So
Yes.
you have to defend your calendar. Defend it at all costs.
I love that analogy. Defend the calendar.
Yeah.
Murray, this has been fantastic. You have so many amazing things to share, and I'm so, so happy that you came on the podcast today. I'd love to know where listeners can connect with you and tell them about how to find your concerts, what other products you offer. Tell us about all the things.
Yeah, so we do, of course, in-person piano concerts on the beach, in parks, in wonderful places, coast to coast. You can find out the schedule at mindtravel.com, mindtravel.com, and we post our schedule there. A lot in Southern California, a lot in Miami area, Florida, Fort Lauderdale, a lot in New York area, New Jersey. So there's a lot going on. You can even make a trip to some of these amazing destinations. There's a lot of great reasons to go to Miami or to Los Angeles or New York and time it with a concert and just make it part of your experience. So I welcome each and every one of you to join us in a mind travel experience. And then for those that are traveling a lot or live in different places, we do it virtually. And, we started doing this during the pandemic, and we've continued it because it's so powerful. We come together twice a month. We do a walking meditation. There's nothing healthier for your physicality and your emotionality than walking. It's so simple, like we said before, simple, but effective. And so we come together virtually, and I guide the experience with music and guided narration and poetry, all on a different theme each month. And we come together virtually and do that, and everyone is welcome to join that. And I also do a concert from my living room once a month so that you can just curl up on your couch with your favorite blanket or your partner or your loved one or your kids or whoever, and just enjoy the music and just enjoy the wonder of it and see the experience that way. So I invite you to in person or virtually, and all of it is on mindtravel.com.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Yeah, I love the sound of all of it. The outdoor stuff and the couch time.
That's right.
I
It's
love
important to have both.
Can't forget to include the pets because I would definitely
Yes.
have my dog with me too on my favorite blanket. So
Absolutely.
okay, as we close out, if you could leave us with your top 3 tips for embracing radical responsibility to live a purpose-driven life.
Okay. The first thing when any situation happens, right, that triggers us, right, and we want to impose radical responsibility in that moment, right, the first thing is to ask the question, right, what can I do to actually move this forward in a healthy way, right? What's going to actually be effective? The second thing is, what is the other person's experience? Try to put yourself in their shoes, right? That really helps. And of course, the third thing is to not take it personal. And if we combine those, then we'll be in a really great place to be able to dissolve things that trigger us, actually help the other person, and most importantly, help ourselves move forward in our lives in the direction that we want in a healthy way.
I love that. So practical, so actionable. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I feel like I've smiled more, like consistently, than any other interview. This has been really beautiful. I've just loved hearing about your journey. I've loved hearing more about music and everything that you do. So thank you so much for sharing that with us and with the world. And I can't wait to come to one of your concerts. And I hope that you have a plantastic day.
Thank you, Dr. Yami. It was really delightful.
Hey, veggie lover. I hope that you loved today's episode. Will you take a second and do me a huge favor? Please subscribe to my podcast so that you never miss an episode. You're the reason I'm here, and I want to share it all with you. Thank you for listening and have a plantastic day.